Now, if we have a culture, then we can have a subculture. And a subculture is a subset of the culture. Now, a subculture is a different culture than within inside the majority culture, the major culture. So, subcultures have different behavior and often different food preparation as well. Sometimes a different language. But typically that language is only used in the home or it's used in certain places. But subcultures exist and they also are okay with the dominant culture. They just accept one or the other. You can do both. Some people will not want you to do both. A subset of a population whose distinctive cultural practices separate them from the dominant group is the way the book defines a subculture. Your cultural practice separates you from the dominant culture, the dominant group. So if you know what a menorah is and Hanukkah, then you're a member of a subculture. So being Jewish is a subculture. Being Scottish is a subculture. Being Hispanic and practicing some cultural practices from Mexico, Spain would be a subculture. You're okay with the dominant culture, but just a subculture. So if we have a culture, we can have cultures within a culture. Now we can also have countercultures. Now a counterculture rails against the dominant culture and doesn't like it. So they obviously and conspicuously rail against the dominant culture. Openly reject the rules and the norms of the dominant culture and replace those values with values they consider more important. Now remember, value is desirable or undesirable. So when Timothy McVeigh bombed the Murrow building, he was a member of both a subculture, militia groups, and a counterculture militia group as well. So he was a member of a subculture and a counterculture at the same time. Now the thing to understand about subcultures is that it's just different behavior and practices. So religion comes in here too. If you're Muslim, if you're Jewish, you have a different religious practices. Catholic. That doesn't make you a counterculture. What makes you a counterculture is when you're in a radical group of that want to get rid of that dominant culture's values and ideas and replace them with your own. And when you get there, you're a counterculture. We wish that selling meth and crack cocaine was legal. And we're against your group who believes we should go to jail for that because our value is it's okay to do that. And so we're going to do that against you and try to replace our values with your values. And then you're liable to get arrested and put in jail for being a member of a counterculture. So counterculture people can end up in prison. They can end up very radical. And it can be Christian right-wing radical groups, left-wing radical groups as well, who would bomb federal buildings, who would attack the dominant culture. So don't put subculture and counterculture together. You can be a member of that subculture and then be part of the radical part of that, and that would be a counterculture member. That makes sense to you? There's mainstream Christians, and then there's Christians who want to make everybody a Christian. and they're counterculture. They want to replace your values with their values. There's the same with the Muslim group. There's Muslims who practice the Muslim faith, and then there's radical Muslims. And there's radical everybody's. Okay, so don't think just because it's a subculture that it's radical. What's radical is the counterculture group. So don't put the two together. That's what I'm trying to get across. They don't belong together. They're different. This would be biker gangs. Okay. This would be people who were bigamists. Okay. Etc. Go ahead.
So, like Hitler would have been a counterculture?
Yes. Yeah, and it became the dominant culture, actually, when he got into power, got voted into power. I'm not sure the people knew what they were voting for at that time, actually, what it was going to turn into.
Like the Westboro Church, would that be considered a counterculture?
Which group?
The Westboro Church?
Maybe. Probably so. Cults would be considered counterculture groups.